Good morning. I call to order the February 2025 meeting of the Governance and Policy Committee of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's joining us here in the West Committee Room. Today is not being live streamed, but a recording will be available after today's meeting. Just a quick reminder that the West Committee Room has room-wide microphones, so please make sure you are projecting when you speak to the Regents, and I'll ask those in the audience to limit side conversations. The first item of business today is to act on the proposed amendments to the board's bylaws. Executive Director Steves and Associate Secretary Jason Langworthy will highlight the changes made since we reviewed the amendments at our December meeting and answer any questions. Associate Secretary Langworthy, will you please walk through those for the bylaws?
Chair Verhalen, members of the committee, good morning. The only change to the bylaws since your review in December was to Article 6. And this is the section that deals with a request to appear before the board. During your conversation, we provided two options. You went with option one, which is to maintain the current process where the chair rules on those requests, but to add to it that the chair would consult with the vice chair or vice chairs and the president before ruling. It provides additional guidance for the chair to consider when making the ruling. Currently, there's no guidance to the chair of what to consider. And then it directs that the chair's ruling and the request be shared with the full board once that's completed. Right now, the chair is under no obligation to share that request with the rest of the board. So this would require the chair to do that so that the rest of the board can see the request and the ruling. Finally, it also includes a provision to ask the requester to provide a rationale for why they're seeking to appear before the board. And that would then provide the chair with additional information for their consideration. No other proposed changes have been made to the amendments since review. Thank you, Chair Verhalen.
Thank you, Associate Secretary Langworthy. Before we turn to discussion, is there a motion to recommend adoption of the proposed amendments to the bylaws of the Board of Regents and direct the Office of the Board of Regents to make any other necessary technical corrections?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Let's turn to discussion. Before I start calling on folks, if anyone has anything, I just want to say that I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that has gone into these changes for requests to appear before the board. I think it creates an additional level of transparency for us as Regents to know when those requests come forward, and then also provides for a very clear process when that request is made, what the chair of the board will be doing with other leadership and the president to consider that request and how those requests are considered, especially walking through those bullets and the criteria and requiring a rationale to inform that decision. So are there any comments, questions, discussion? All right. There being no discussion, no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. The motion is approved. Our second item on today's agenda is to act on proposed amendments to the Board of Regents Policy Code of Conduct for members of the Board of Regents. These amendments were also reviewed at the December meeting, and some changes have been made to reflect feedback provided by Regents. Executive Director Steves and Associate Secretary Langworthy again are here to walk us through these items. So Associate Secretary Langworthy, will you please walk us through the changes since December and the amendment that I will offer, which you all have a copy of now, and then we'll see if we get a motion in a second, and we'll go from that one.
Great.
So please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Verhalen. So since your review in December, changes have been made to Section 9, Communication Outside of Meetings, and we'll look at the amendment copy since that actually includes all of the changes that have been made since December anyway. So first, your conversation really focused on sort of the use of marks and letterhead and then letters of recommendation. So to address that conversation, we provided some guidance on when Regents may use university marks or letterhead, and the amendment, which is the highlighted section. So what was included in the docket was in the highlighted section, the struck through first sentence is in your docket. The rest of the language then would be the amendment. And so that amendment would direct OBR to provide individualized university letterhead that a regent may choose to use when communicating their individual views on university matters. So each regent would be issued with this individualized letterhead and then would be able to use that when expressing those views. And as the sentence in that same paragraph makes clear, when sharing individual views on university matters in whatever form, including when using individualized letterhead, regents must state that they are not speaking for the board or the university. Then the other additional sentence that's added there is a prohibition from regents using any other university letterhead when communicating their individual views on university matters. So the result would be regents would have an individual letterhead, they could use it to speak on university matters, and they would need to be required to state that they are not speaking for the board or the university if their views don't align with actions taken by the board or positions of the university. The other section then below the amendment is included in your docket. That hasn't changed, but it's nice that it's displayed here as well. So for letters of recommendation, we added two provisions. The first was included last month. The regents are prohibited from using the title of regent, university marks, or letterhead for letters of recommendation for anything inside the university, right? So within the university, prohibited from doing that for a individual who's applying, say, for admission to the university or a program or a scholarship, that regents can't sort of provide that advocacy within the university. Outside of the university, regents would be prohibited from using university marks or letterhead, but could identify themselves as a regent when the context of the recommendation is based on those interactions with the individual in their official role. So let's say, for example, you worked with someone within your official role of the regent, they say are applying or seeking employment at another institution, they ask you for a letter of recommendation, you would be able to provide that. You would just be able to provide that on your personal letterhead, but within the letter you can say, my interactions with, this individual were through my interactions as a regent of the University of Minnesota. I found them to be, and then provide your recommendation. So with that, Chair Verhalen, there were no other amendments made to the policy, and Executive Director Steves and I are ready for any questions that you might have.
So I just procedurally want to make sure that we proceed accordingly. We would need a motion and a second on the full revisions to the Code of Conduct, and then a motion and second for the amendment.
Correct.
Okay. So is there a motion, before we start discussion, is there a motion to recommend adoption of the proposed amendments as they were presented in our docket materials?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So then, from a formality standpoint, I will introduce the amendment that's before all of you. So I will make a motion to introduce the amendment as Associate Secretary Langworthy has walked through. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we are considering, just for clarity, we are considering the Board of Regents policy, Code of Conduct for members of the Board of Regents as presented in the docket materials, including the amendment. Everyone clear on that?
Speaking to the amendment right now.
Right,
Yep.
but
Mhm.
it will go into it. So we'll vote first on the amendment and then we'll vote on the policy. So basically, Mary, what we will do is vote to kind of absorb this into all of the changes for the policy on whether it goes in or not, and then we'll vote on the full policy. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Yay, Robert's rules. All right. So is there any discussion?
Question.
Okay, Regent Turner and then Regent Hirsch.
Are you sure? I'm just wondering, so usually they'll have a page of references, and on that page of references, they'll have like the name of the person and their title. Do you think that we should be able to put the regent title on that cover page? And the reason is because that accomplishes, otherwise it defeats the purpose of this.
Can you,
So
I'm not sure
Right.
what you mean. Are you
Clarify.
talking about if
Clarify.
a,
A page of references with names and addresses and.
Yep. So the individual applicant will submit their application and list their references and may list their titles, which might include regent.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't, know how much control we have over that, but go ahead, Regent Mayron.
I was gonna say, I don't think we have any control over what an applicant does in terms of identifying the role of the individual that they want to have a reference. It's what we can do in terms of really lending our position or imprimatur of the university to that reference, and that's what this is designed to do. I don't think we can stop applicants from saying J.D. Mayron, Regent.
Yeah, we can direct our own code of conduct
Can't
outside of that.
Yes.
Okay,
Better said.
I'm good with that.
Regent Turner?
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. So you made the point of, yeah, they've established that you're the region on their application. So you're saying that we can, in the body, I'm going to write a reference for someone who wants to go to college, wherever.
You're gonna write me a reference to go back to medical school somewhere else.
Really?
No,
Okay.
never.
Good luck with that. No. Anyway, in the body, you're saying I can say, mention that I'm a regent, but at the very bottom, I just put Mary C. Turner. I don't put regent at all. Isn't that kind of silly?
I don't know if that's what we're saying. I think what we're saying is you can, a letter of recommendation, if you're going to be using your title as regent, that relationship should be related to your work as a regent. So if instead it's someone my neighbor, who I know not because of being a regent, but because they're my neighbor, I shouldn't mention my title in that letter of recommendation. Now, if I'm writing a letter for you, I can say, I've known Mary for X number of years through our work as the Board of Regents. And then when I sign it, I would sign it as regent. I don't see something here prohibiting me from signing it, Cody Verhalen, Regent of the Board of Regents of the University of Minnesota.
But we can't use it if we're writing, it's only come up where I now have McKenna, who I was the first one to hold her, and now she's getting to be high
Yep.
school, college kind of thing, and her mom was like, don't be surprised if McKenna asks you for a reference. So this will be the first time that
Yep.
this comes across. And so McKenna will probably write, Regent Mary Turner on her thing. And so you're saying when I write that letter, I can refer that I'm a regent in the body,
No.
but on,
Because your relationship with McKenna isn't because of your role as a regent. Your relationship with McKenna is because of a personal relationship.
and is that what this means by here or any other here? This first one here, the conferring other activities of benefit, what does all that mean?
You talking about the first bullet?
Under letter, the first part here, guys. down
Yep.
here.
So under letters of recommendation, is that where you're looking?
Yeah, regions are prohibited from using the
Yep.
title, marks, or yada, yada.
Yep. And so that's for anyone applying to the university.
Any university or just
The
this one?
university.
Just this one?
Yep.
Okay.
Just this one. And then you're prohibited from using university marks or letterhead for letters of recommendation for individuals outside of the university. So McKenna, for example, would fall into that first category. Now, if you had met McKenna as a student leader as your role of regent, then yes, you could
Oh, okay.
mention your role as regent in the recommendation letter.
That's then that they won't put two and two together when they see that she did on her application and then. but-
Yep. We can't
All
control
right, I
it.
just need to
Yeah.
understand how to,
The mechanics.
yes.
Yep.
And you're saying also that you guys would supply, OBR would supply letterhead for all the other things. So you write your opinion, and this is not a reference letter, you're gonna write your opinion about something. You state that you're not, and I respect that. We always had to do that with M&A, where you say, no, this is not, I'm only speaking from myself. Can you sign that at the bottom, Regent Mary Turner?
Yes.
What's the difference?
The difference is, in my view, is you're not using the official stationary letterhead that is somehow communicating that this is an official position or has, even though you're stating it's my position, that it somehow is coming out of the university and is a statement of the university. And so this isn't precluding you from making that statement. It's just that instead of putting it on the letterhead, which people, as soon as they see it, go, oh, this is a right or wrong, this is the position of an official position of the university. This is making it very clear, you're speaking on your own, here's your personalized letterhead. And again, I think you could sign it at the bottom. I supported this position, I disagreed with it, here's why. You sign it Mary Turner, and in it you're saying, this is my personal view, this is not a statement on behalf of the university. So
I'm going back to the title,
Yeah,
because you said Mary Turner, that's the part that I'm,
that, to me, nothing would prohibit you signing your individual letter stating your views about a university matter, a position taken, and signing that individualized letter with the letter, your own letterhead, and signing it Regent Mary Turner.
Does that clarify your questions?
Okay.
Other questions? Comments? All right,
We still on just the amended,
we're just on the amendment right now, yes.
F1 when we get broader.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough question. All right, anything else on the amendment? All right, there being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
abstain.
Sorry?
Abstain.
Okay. All right, the amendment is adopted, and now we'll turn to the main motion, which is the full revisions to the policy. Are there any questions, or is there any discussion? Regent Wheeler?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's clear, and it's much clearer than what we've dealt with in the past, so I appreciate that and all the work on this too. And this doesn't preclude by any means our reason and need to debate issues, and that, so it doesn't preclude that. As somebody referred to this, it's just another way that the Board of Regents rubber stamps things. I don't think that's true at all. I think in the meetings and we share opinions and sometimes have conflicting ideas of things. We come to a conclusion after that. So I just don't want people to feel that way. The one question I have is still in section 9, but it's the board chair should speak on behalf of the board, or the vice chair, in the absence of the board chair, which makes sense to me. I'm just wondering if there's ever a situation where the chair's designee, like if the chair has the right to designate a spokesperson on a particular issue on the board. So sometimes I've seen language in things like this that the chair or the chair's designee. So that was my only question. And this may cover, all situations, but I'm thinking, if there was a thing that came out about a new health system or that, would we want to allow, Janie to designate Ruth, for example, to speak on behalf of something like that. So I'm just wondering if the chair's designee could also potentially speak on that. It wouldn't happen very often, but I wonder if that was that flexibility.
So just for sake of clarity, you're referring to section 9 that says the president's the primary spokesperson for the university. The
Right.
board chair or board
Appropriate.
vice chair in the chair's absence is the spokesperson for the board and may represent the position of the board once it has acted. Right, that's the section you're
That's a section,
looking
yeah.
at?
And
Okay.
I'm just wondering if it could be the board's designee, board chair's designee. It has to be designated by the chair.
Executive Director Steves or Associate Secretary Langworthy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Madam Chair, it seems like if you wished to do that, it's actually the sentence after where it says, when necessary, the board chair or board vice chair in the chair's absence will speak on behalf of the university. You could say, when necessary, the board chair or board chair's designee will speak on behalf of the university. I mean, you could do something simple like that.
I was going to suggest, I think this is a good point that Regent Wheeler is pointing out, and your example, I think, is a good example where this could happen. I would suggest that that second sentence of the first paragraph be modified to say the board chair, comma, the board vice chair in the chair's absent, or the board chair's designee is the spokesperson, and add it there. I mean, the first choice would be the chair, the second is the vice chair, and if the board chair decides, someone else can say it better, which there will be situations like that, I think that's a good point, and I think that would be appropriate to add to that second sentence of the first paragraph. Be happy to make a motion in that regard. I guess it would require another amendment.
Why don't you go ahead and make that motion and then we can discuss it.
Okay,
Do you need to put vice chairs or vice chair with S parentheses?
Nope, because we have,
we've defined it
Okay.
earlier that vice chair can include both one or both of those vice chairs. Okay. I would move to amend the first paragraph of section 10, the second sentence, to read, "The board chair, board vice chair in the chair's absence, or designee of the board chair." And then we'll go on to read, "is the spokesman for the board and may represent the position of the board once it has acted."
and just to be clear, it's section 9, communication outside of
I'm
meetings,
sorry,
correct?
section 9, yes, excuse me.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Chair Verhillen,
Yeah, Associate Secretary Langworthy, please.
may I just clarify, just to make sure we get the language correct? Regent Mayron, or the board chair's designee, or the designee
Designee.
of the board chair?
It could be either. It says the same.
It's grammatically correct.
How about you make the motion such that the board office can make the wording clear as clear as possible?
Well, but we're going to present this morning, so I'm
Yep.
thinking, oh,
We'll work quickly, Regent.
all right, yeah, I'm good with either version.
Are you good with that friendly amendment to your amendment?
Yes, it's a very, yes, I do, I accept it, yes.
And are you okay
My
with that friendly
designee, the
amendment?
designee of the chair of the
Got it.
governance to the master of language.
Any further discussion? No, the example you raised is a good one. I can think of other situations where where a chair may want to designate to someone else the ability to speak on an issue, so.
Geez, on issues.
Yep. And I think affirmatively stating that flexibility is important. All right, so we are voting on the motion to make that change to section 9. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Anyone abstaining?
I said aye.
All right, so the amendment, Regent Mayron's amendment is adopted. Are there any further questions or discussion on the revisions to the code of conduct? All right, there being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Abstain. Abstain.
You're abstaining from voting on the rest of the changes to the.
Yep.
The new code of conduct is adopted. Sorry, the revisions to the code of conduct are adopted, not a new one. All right, so our final item today is to discuss and provide feedback on the onboarding process plan for the new regents who will be elected in 2025. Presenting this item are Executive Director Steves and Associate Executive Director Marlo Welshins. Executive Director Steves, would you like to kick us off?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we're excited to talk about some revised approaches that we're planning to take to onboarding and get your reaction to them. We can go ahead and just dive right in. As we think about the purpose of onboarding, it's really about knowledge and relationships. The knowledge that we seek to quickly build in new regents who join the board is an understanding of governance and how governance works at the University of Minnesota, as well as then the knowledge of the breadth and depth of this institution and some of the key issues and decisions that they will need to make quickly after they're elected. So that's the knowledge piece of it. And the relationship piece, we really try to quickly get them acquainted with their fellow colleagues on the Board of Regents, with the president, with other senior leaders, and then obviously in kind of concentric circles, the many, many other people that they may interact with at the university across time. As you know, this board has actually adopted a policy request or a provision seeking the legislature, when they do the election, to create a transition period. We as staff would obviously welcome that change to the way elections happen, because as you'll know, as currently constituted, regents are elected immediately upon the joint convention. which makes onboarding very difficult because, for instance, we've had regents elected over the lunch hour during a board meeting. It's very difficult to onboard someone and get them ready for decision making when they're literally in the midst of a decision. And so when we think about onboarding, we are always trying to be very flexible in our approach because we know that we don't control the timing of it. We don't control how that timing might interact with existing board meetings and business. And so we have to always be thinking in a very adaptable, nimble way when we approach this. And so anyway, but those are some of the purposes and our objectives, our kind of overarching objectives related to onboarding. And with that, Assistant Executive Director Welshons will guide you through the presentation.
Please.
Chair Verhalen, members of the committee. So of course, regents are throughout their term, building knowledge, developing relationships, doing the work of learning to be a member of a productive group of regents. However, for that initial onboarding period, our focus really is on the work to make sure that they have the basics. So for instance, they understand the role of a regent, basic things like public governance, the board operations like how to access the docket, especially in that situation where they're coming into a meeting and need to know how to get to it. And then how to understand or make sure they understand the breadth of the university and the current issues before the board. So in anticipation of this upcoming election, we are working through some potential improvements for that onboarding process. Mostly focused on that sort of Regent 101 and University 101 content, thinking about how we could condense and deliver that in an online, self-paced way that both gives them the ability to be prepared for meetings with senior leaders or others, and have something to go back to maybe when later they're like, okay, that was a fire hose. Now I'm kind of getting my sea legs here. What did you say about how I do expense reports? And we have that resource available. So the hope for that is, again, both something they can refer to in the past, but also that relationship building goal, that in doing that homework before a meeting with the senior leaders, they can come to that meeting rather than spending that time trying to learn everything that the senior leader wants to convey, but rather have read that material, watched those videos, and then spend that time developing that relationship, focusing on questions that may have come up during their homework time, that they said, oh, this is an area I want a deeper dive on. And then finally, the campus visits. So many of you have now been on these onboarding campus visits. We have in the past scheduled them to ensure that the new regents are the ones able to go, but then we open them up to any other regent who is interested. We would hope that we could embed these visits more deliberately in the broader engagement strategy, so more regents are actually able to go and even have value by considering maybe some different itineraries. So the new regents have an opportunity to do that broad overview, have time with the chancellors or other senior leaders, and then the regents who are veteran, who've maybe been there, seen that broad overview, have an opportunity to maybe do another listening session, do a deeper dive in an area that they haven't yet learned about. So again, thinking about this onboarding as being the first step in a longer term effort to develop a board that is cohesive and high performing, we think about, well, what does it look like then to have been successful at onboarding, at board development? And so in the boardroom, it looks like regents who are thoroughly prepared to have a robust discussion and to be able to make good decisions on the issues before the board. But then across the system, it looks like the ability to be engaged, to have in-person FaceTime with faculty, staff, students, community members, hear from them about their issues that they're facing, hear about their accomplishments that they're proud of, the things that they're excited about at that facility or in that unit. And then really for you to be able to continue to see firsthand the impact that the university has on those lives of those students, faculty, staff, the communities, and the state. So with that, happy to listen to your thoughts, both on broad feedback you may have on either our planned improvements or additional suggestions you may have, and especially if there's things you know you would have loved to have learned early on in your term that maybe you didn't get, or what have been important resources or activities for you as you learn to be a regent.
Thank you. Thoughts? Go ahead, Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Chair. So like the timing of when we get elected is very important because all of a sudden you're not elected, then you're elected, and then you're a regent. And so the big things that we have coming up right after that are budget. So we really need to get a crash course on budget fast, as right out of the gate. And that has to be pretty in-depth because the budget's pretty in-depth and it's pretty complicated. That was a learning curve I think I had because it was just like, you kind of learn about it as when you're running for regent, but when you get on here, it's like you have to make these really fast decisions. And so that would be my, otherwise I like everything you're talking about. I like the fact that you're opening it up to other regions because things change over the years, so I like that too, so thank you.
Other thoughts? Yeah, Regent Turner.
Did we not change it to where they would start July 1st? Or don't we have the power to do that?
Unfortunately, Regent Turner, we don't have the power to do that, but we have made the request of leadership at the legislature to make that a rules change within their rules. And please correct me if I've misstated that, Executive Director Steves.
That's accurate.
Well, then I second what he is saying, because that was, not only do you need a crash course and all that, but now you're voting on stuff that you weren't doing any legwork with it, you don't know anything about it. It puts you in a very difficult position. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Do I need to say that to a legislator?
You may say whatever you would like in your own personal.
My own. Touche, duly noted. But seriously, you launch right into some of the most important decisions.
And Regent Turner, I
No
think
knowledge of what you're doing.
I think that's true for every meeting that we have. There is something in every meeting of consequence. And it is a really interesting process that we have because the business of the university continues without any of that ramp-up time kind of built into it, unlike a lot of other elected officials who have a several-month process just to get to swearing in and then usually have a bit of time before they're actually acting on things. And it's a very unique dynamic. And so I appreciate the additional work for sure that OBR has gone through in trying to beef up what that looks like and reorder some things because it's a lot to take in. And to your point, Assistant Executive Director Welshons, the breadth of the university, I think, is really interesting. I didn't think we would, be voting on toilet paper in a board meeting.
Anymore.
Not anymore. We fixed that. Unless you're buying a lot of toilet paper. But
Just can't let that lie.
no, we can't. But just the level of involvement of the board in so many different facets of the university and truly understanding what all of those facets are. I mean, people are still shocked when I tell them, no, the Arboretum is the Board of Regents landscape arboretum. And they're surprised to learn those kinds of things. So it's a broad institution. Any other comments or questions on the planned improvements? Yeah, Regent
I
Wheeler.
would say thank you, Chair Verhalen. Thank you very much, Director Wilson. This is, I think this is really an improvement. There were several times where the three of us couldn't get on a call at the same time, and I felt like we weren't using the staff or faculty's times efficiently either. And so to have this video content that's self-learning and then just be able to pose the questions, makes a lot of sense. So I think a lot of sense, and a lot of to add the engagement opportunities for those of us who have been there places before. I think it's really smartly done. So thank you. The one thing I might suggest to President Cunningham, I've heard from legislators that they want a University 101. like a subcomponent of this content, you know, for legislators might be something to consider as well.
Please, President Cunningham.
We have a beautiful packet designed by our communications team and government relations that is being handed to them, but we'd be delighted to provide more information.
Perfect, yeah, thank you.
And I think the more of this pre-recorded electronic content that we're able to prepare for some of these items. Obviously, there are items that you need the one-on-one tactile experience, but for the basics, for the depth and breadth, initial understanding, and some of the maybe that's what I'm looking for, evolving issues. It gives, at least from my perspective, a really great opportunity to not try and absorb all the information in a 45-minute meeting and then try and figure out what questions I want to ask in the last 10 minutes of that meeting, but to watch it, listen to it, maybe watch it again and see if any of my questions were actually answered, and ruminate on it a little bit and think about what questions I may have that are more meaningful versus finishing the meeting and then 20 minutes later go, oh, now I get what they were saying with that, so I should have asked that question, and then trying to take up additional staff time or get to the right person to
Work
ask it.
well potentially for other items on our board agenda, as we've discussed previously, and as we've seen. Sometimes when the student gave that presentation, gave a video to us in advance, it was much easier to ask questions and use our time for that instead of
Right.
just listening to the script.
Yeah, trying to absorb it instantaneously. Yeah, Regent
Just a
Johnson.
brief comment, and I totally support this. I just recall experience, Regents Verhalen, Hipsch, and I were elected in March of 2021, and we've done the whole thing through COVID. So I never met a legislator in person. Everything was virtual. We got, we did all our communication virtually.
Yep.
The election happened, and that was in March. And we started going, but I mean, it was July before the board could meet. That was at the retreat. That's the first time I met face-to-face any of you.
From 6 feet away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mask on, no, see, guess who am I,
Yeah.
No, but I mean, and then we did our onboarding in the fall, and that all was absolutely necessary in those circumstances. And, but I think one of the people in the board office, secretary quit, and, and it was just, so for several months, it was really, and again, for Halen and Hipsch had a lot of ongoing and earlier connections to the university, but not everybody does. And I think you don't want everybody to have the same kind of experience. It's good to have people, but it really is a really, difficult situation. So that took a while, and so anyway, I just think that hopefully we won't have anything quite that extreme, but I think it's good to plan. And I love the idea of the videos and stuff ahead of time. It helps so much. Prepared.
And to revisit them. Like after you've had a first meeting, to go back and
Yes.
reground yourself and,
Right.
okay, now I see how it functions. What are the
Sorry.
pieces of it that I might not have thought about before?
Yeah.
Yeah, Regent Turner and then Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Chair Verhelen. Is one of the videos gonna be like a Robert's Rules video?
Oh, no.
No. I mean, I'm well versed in it, but that would be one thing coming off the street you may or may not be familiar with. And add to that, the formality. I mean, I still have trouble with all the calling you chairman. I can spit that out, but all the other VP this and what are you, associate VP kind of, you know what I mean? You got 3 titles before I get to your name kind of thing. But at least make people aware of that formality kind of thing, because that's a whole nother intimidating thing to run into. Maybe it's not for the rest of you, but
I trip up all the
I'm-
time.
I'm-
with that.
Yeah,
All
when
the
you're
time.
chairing,
Yeah.
when you're chairing and you have to look, now
Yeah,
I
yeah.
pretty much know most of the
But just so people are aware of that, that's how, what goes on. And then also saying that we're all live streamed and just preparing for the video on preparing on what the environment is gonna be.
Yeah, the mechanics. The mechanics of the job in addition to the content, yeah. Regent Hipsch.
Thank you. So we get onboarded by a lot of groups when we first get elected. And sometimes you don't know what's official, what's not official, And so to go through that history of how decisions were made, because some groups just keep coming up again and again every time new regents are elected and try to get their foot in the door on something, and they don't know the history, so I think there has to be a history session of current events that are happening because everybody wants to onboard us, right, in their own way. We really don't know who's official and who isn't, so,
I ditto that also.
yeah.
Yeah, Regent Mayron.
Answering that first bullet, what do you wish you had learned early on in your term? You know, I think we all knew because of the open meeting law that our deliberations as a group is open to everyone, and it's one thing to know that and have been told that, but to experience it, I think, is a whole different ball of wax. And to let new regents know, give them examples, hypotheticals, whatever, how it plays out in the boardroom, and that really every comment that we make, whether it's in the boardroom or outside the boardroom about the university, whether it's a question or an answer, has the potential for an enormous ripple effect well beyond what we might have intended by our question or our comment, and being so cognizant of it, of what you say, how you ask it, and to whom you say it to. And I don't think until you've experienced that and a reporter comes up and sticks a microphone in your face or something like that, that you truly understand, you think you're doing the best job answering the question, you say, I'm, speaking personally, but the ripple effect is huge. And bringing that home early, and probably by way of examples or hypotheticals or, where it's gone off the rails in the past, I think is what is fundamental. I was clearly told about it being, I'm in a fishbowl, there's no question, but seeing how it plays out and how it can constrain what you say and do publicly is a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, President Cunningham.
If I might offer a suggestion also, I think it's good for all new readers to think about media training as well as opportunities to engage with our communications team to get at the kind of effects that Regent Mayron discussed. And so, all of that can be provided in partnership with our communications team in the university to help people get up to speed on how we do communicate across a complex organization and exactly what those ripple effects are. And both me and my communications team would just love broader, clarity and cohesiveness around that. So, yeah.
And just building on it, also understanding the role that our office plays, OBR plays in helping, who has a broader view than we might. The initial reaction is I see something, I get an email, and I want to write my opinion and hit the send button. And then I go, I think I'll call Brian, or what do you think? Or should we respond? Because I think I understand and know what needs to be done, but understanding what my comment may do besides what I'm thinking of in my house or at my computer, we really need that big overview in terms of what impact will it have at the legislature with donors, all these things that we just don't have the individualized expertise to be able to understand the broad implication. So I think emphasizing the importance, and it's not to constrain people, it's to make sure they understand, here's the ramification if you do it, and here's our suggestion, how you do it or don't do it. Ultimately people will make their own decisions, but getting that advice, I just think, is invaluable, and every regent should be encouraged to do that.
Other suggestions?
Yeah, Regent Turner.
You brought up a great suggestion about meeting with the comms. I would also add, you just spent the whole season, I call it the season, interacting with the legislators. So can we, not to make too many videos, but can we have that same thing with our government relations so that they can demonstrate to us how important it is? Because we've started those relationships going through the whole process of meeting everybody. And it's kind of nice to, if people have the time and energy to do it, just to get if they've never spent time at the Capitol before that, or can we have a presentation from them also?
Regent Verhalen, or Chair Verhalen, Regent Turner. So yes, I think our plan is to go from here to start to develop both new content, but also leverage existing content. I think, we'll work with the administration to, make sure that we're not just saying, go make all this new content that you're saying, well, we already have this and we can gather that. So we'll start by, seeing what's already out there and making sure that we can pull it together in a way that has coherence and serves you, and then where there's, new material that would be of value to make, we can work on making sure that it's of value to you and perhaps of value to, other external audiences as well.
Yeah, it's just, legislators, once they know you're a regent, they just, if nothing else, they love to use you as a sounding board. And it's so important. So it's a little bit more than just a constituent seeing their representative kind of thing. And that role, I wish it could be conveyed.
I guess Assistant Executive Director Welshans, after hearing all this, do you have any further questions, any other thoughts, anything else that would be helpful?
Chair
So you
Verhalen?
build this out?
No, this has been very helpful, and again, we'll work on getting this ready for election 2025, and then again, as we always do, continue to refine for future onboarding.
And as materials are prepared, I'm assuming the full board will be made aware of them, so we can refresh ourselves too.
Yes, yes.
And maybe provide more feedback once we've seen them.
Always learning.
There you go. Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Really appreciate it. There being no additional business before the committee, we stand adjourned until 9:15 in the boardroom. Thank you.